everyone, and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us at No Soundbites Allowed, your favorite program on the podcast. And I am your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, talking with you once again on many subjects that are going on. Today is just a very frustrating day. That's why I'm doing this episode a little bit earlier than my normal Saturday episode. And the reason why I'm doing this is it's just aggravating what's going on the internet, and in particular if you're looking at Facebook. And one of the big things is I will be talking about both the national walkout that happened in schools across the country, where we saw students essentially protesting and talking about gun control. And that's a very upsetting subject. I also want to talk about what I'm seeing on Facebook, some of the reactions that I've gotten from people for asking a very simple question. And of course, I also want to talk about what happened in California, the most recent news that just happened, and it's shocking in Sacramento. But let's deal with the first thing first. So there was a national walkout yesterday, March 14th, all across the nation. Students walked out of schools for 17 minutes to protest and to make people aware about gun control and the mass shooting that happened in Parkland, Florida, back on February 14th. So it's a serious subject, a very serious subject. And let me start off with, first of all, obviously, in any mass shooting, we are always concerned and we want to prevent that. And we're sorry for and give our condolences to everyone who is affected by this in any way. And that's absolutely sincere. And I'm truly, truly concerned about that. In every case of any mass shooting, anywhere, in any kind of shooting throughout the entire nation. But we also have to address the realities that are going on here. And from what I can see, there's a lot of what I see essentially is that students and kids are being used as a tool to prop up a political agenda. And I find that sickening. It's upsetting. And I've been talking about this for a little while now, about how there's this movement to try and get the age to be able to own a firearm moved to 21. And the most sickening thing about that is the part that's not being talked about, which is we're trying to convince and use kids to promote an idea to take away their freedom for an extended period of time. We're using kids as the means to promote this movement. And that's upsetting. They don't understand. We're talking about 15, 16, 17, in the case of the guns, 18, 19, 20. These are young adults, let's go with that, young adults who don't understand the rights that we're talking about for the most part. And it's not because they're not intelligent, and it's not because they don't have emotions about this. I'm sure they do, and there is no question on that. The thing is that, one, we're talking about something that, at the end of the day, does not make them safer. In the history of mass shootings over the last 35 years, there's been, 3 times that an individual was able to get their hands on a firearm and use it for a mass shooting. Now, I understand if it's even once, well, that's too many. But if we are truly being so proactive that if even once someone does something, then we must make it illegal and make laws about it. Where are the laws against bath salts? Where are the laws against Tide Pods? Let's be honest, people. There's a difference. What about driving? What about driving? Drunk driving at that. And being drunk is already, at 21, drinking under 21, drinking is illegal to start with. And yet we still have drunk drivers who are under the age of 21. So should kids not be able to drive until they're 21 when they're able to drink? Is that the answer? No. And no one's suggesting that. But yet and by the way, driving is a privilege, not a right. But we're talking about taking away people's rights because 3 individuals over 3 decades abused their rights. That doesn't seem to be equitable to me. That doesn't seem to match up. And we have laws in our country that say that the punishment should fit the crime. Well, we have 3 individuals over 3 decades, and we want to take away the rights of every single, 51 million young adults. That's everyone from 18 on down. And we're going to take away their rights because of 3 people over 3 decades. That doesn't sound right. I mean, think about it. It doesn't sound right. But that's actually not the point of what I'm trying to get to. So, but that's what I've been talking about for the last couple of episodes, I think 3 episodes now. But let's look at this walkout. Now, the thing that caught my attention about the walkout is I noticed that it was very coordinated. It's across the entire nation. All the news media is very, very much talking about one aspect, that all the students left the schools, that over 1 million students throughout the nation stepped out. Well, first of all, there's 51 million students in the nation at this time, I believe. If I'm remembering the numbers correctly, it's 51 million students. And of those, we had 1 million step out. So it's not everyone. But if you look at the news media, and as an example, just to further that point, in my region, it was Maine Endwell schools, we saw that in one of the schools, only 17 students stepped out of the school, out of a school that has a couple hundred students. So it wasn't universal. It wasn't 100% compliance. And no doubt, 1 million students doing this is a strong statement, but let's look at this. The media has been portraying this across. I mean, you look at all the news media, you look at social media, they're portraying this as if 100% of the students across the nation left schools for 17 minutes and in making this point. Well, one, there isn't 100% compliance in anything in the world. You can't get 100% of human beings agreeing on any subject ever. It's never happened, and I don't think it ever will. It's not possible, especially once 2 people, 3 people, maybe. You're talking millions of people. No, you're never going to get 100% compliance, ever. You won't even get into the 90s. That's reality. But yet the media is portraying it as if it was 100%, that all students agree about this. Now, that's a little bit troubling to me. To start off with, one, what's the message that's being sent out to the youth? Compliance. You must comply. Everyone is complying. This is peer pressure at its most extreme. It's bullying, in essence. It's saying that if you don't, you have to agree. It's not even do you. You must agree because everyone agrees. So you can't speak out. It's not allowed. And we're not seeing news stories about students who didn't comply, who didn't want to comply. And we're not hearing about their story and what they said and why they didn't want to do that. We haven't heard a single story about that. And I want to say that that's nearly 100% correct, because there was one story, again, on local news agency, WSKG in the Binghamton area, did in fact come out, and they had a story talking about there were 17 students, as I mentioned, that had come out, and there was another student who was actually going to their lunch because they could do that. And that one student mentioned that they didn't think the protest was useful, and they believed that dealing with mental health issues was the answer. One article. I found one article that said that. I found dozens of articles across the nation talking about how all the students went out and they were all supporting this. And I found one article which had to be given to me by an associate off of Facebook who found and works with WSKG and made me aware that they had actually done an article that had 2 sentences of someone saying they disagreed with this consensus of thought. So that's a little bit troubling when we're pushing kids to agree to a singular point of view that is promoted by the media and props up a political agenda, a singular type of political agenda, which is gun control. That's terrifying. I mean, and very few people ever actually word the situation as it is. They usually couch it in very friendly, media-friendly statements like, well, we're out to protect the kids. These are the kids doing this themselves. No, there's no politics involved. That's a lie. This is a political issue, front and foremost. It's a political issue. You're talking about the Second Amendment. You're talking about people's rights. You're talking about restricting those rights. You're talking about using a solution to a problem, a legal solution, that is proven to be ineffective. For 40 years, gun bans and gun restrictions have not prevented gun deaths. Whether it's mass deaths, whether it's individual deaths, it hasn't worked. We know this for a fact because the Parkland shooting happened a month ago. We know that in Chicago, people have been dying consistently and still are from gun violence. So to say that, and we're talking Chicago has the strongest gun bans in the nation. So to say that gun restrictions and gun bans are the solution and they're the only solution is a lie. There is no other way to say it. It's a lie. And we're talking about promoting that as the singular answer to our youth and pushing them with peer pressure to say, there is no other answer. You can't even speak about another answer. We won't even highlight and put out there a different answer. This is it. You're going to lose your rights. That's terrifying. That's a terrifying thought. This is the message that is going out on social media, that's going out on the news. You're going to lose your rights. You're going to lose them. Yes, we're going to lose them for a period of time, but that's not the message. Not, oh, it's a period of time. It's, you're going to lose the right to be able to have a firearm. And you have to agree to it because there is no other answer. This is the only answer. But it got me even, not only just that part gets me upset, but I also went a little bit further. And I said to myself, okay, it's interesting. How did these kids get this organized locally across the nation? How did they do this? Because that's another question that really deserves to be asked. And I was speaking to a couple of my contacts and some of my associates, and I said, this is, food, and I put it out on Facebook, food for thought. How did these kids organize this? How did this get to happen? Because the kids are the ones who are said to have done this. Well, as it turns out, it seems that the kids were relying across the nation, many of them were relying on this website, which is marchforourlives.com. And they were going there and they were getting advice and organizational tips from that website to be able to conduct this protest, this march. Well, who is that? Think about it. There is a website telling our youth how to do something. They're instructing them on how to commit protests, how to go out and defy and amplify their voice and defy, what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be in school to commit an act of civil disobedience, which is fine. I'm not questioning that part. I'm questioning who are these people who are doing that? Who are these people who are organizing it? And everyone came back to, well, Mike, that's the students who did that. Okay, well, I took a look at marchforourlives.com. And what you find out is it's a website that was created 3 days, February 17th of 2018. So 3 days after the shooting in Parkland, we're to believe that the students who were in grief and were shocked went and bought a website. On top of that, they bought the website and hid from public view who, in fact, actually owns the website. They hid it from the public. You can't find that. Then they built a website, which also is hidden on who actually created that website and who manages that website. Well, that's interesting that they did that while they were in grief and in shock of the shooting. They did that 3 days later. They then organized this page and created a 501c4. Now you say to yourself, Mike, I don't know what a 501c4 is. Real simple. It's a PAC. It's a political action committee, essentially. It is the same thing as, Citizen Action or any of the other Acorn and so many other political lobbyist groups. They are there to lobby. For ourlives.com. They themselves state that they are a 501c4, a political organization. So you're meaning to tell me that, again, 3 days after the shooting in Parkland, a bunch of the students there, while dealing with their grief and shock of the event, went out, bought a website, built the website, hid it from the public, and created a 501c4, which I don't think they even know what that is, because most adults don't know what that is. And they did all this within 3 days. Really? That's shocking to me. So anyone who's telling me that's a group of 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds got together and they created this website and they created this 501c4, you're not telling the truth. You don't understand the circumstances. Those are adults who are doing that. Those are politically motivated adults. And from the language that's on the website and from the further protests and activities that they have, and I'll get into that. There's another point, but all of what their wording is, and for the planned events they have in the future, we see a far left agenda. They're using far left bullet points, which are politically motivated. And then take into account that within days of that website being created, they were instantly able to reach out to celebrities and political figures who the general public cannot contact and had them endorsing this movement within days. You mean to tell me a couple of kids in a Florida high school are able to reach out to some of the top political and entertainment celebrities and are able to contact them without knowing how, to be able to get them to join into this organization that's brand new, that was created with a 501c4, and they had the money and the wherewithal to do this while suffering from grief. It doesn't make sense. So when I say that I think that the kids are being used and they're being directed, well, let's look at what's going on. Yes, they're being used and directed because everything around them that is moving this movement is directly something that's done by adults and is politically motivated and organized. This isn't a kids movement. This is a bunch of adults using kids for their movement, for a movement against the Second Amendment to gain a political advantage. It's an emotional ploy, and that is sickening. So let me stop here and let me let you think about that for a moment as we're going to take our first break. Just consider what I've just put together, and you can look that up yourself. Look it up under Who Is search on Google and try and find for yourself who actually controls and owns marchforourlives.com, because you'll see the same things that I've found. But with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with something else. All right, everyone, and thank you for joining us back at No Soundbites Allowed, your favorite program on the Podsphere, I guess it's called. And this is your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. And, wow, so that's a very important, in our first segment, we were talking about a very important subject. Who is really behind all of this movement, this march for our lives, the protest against guns that were started, which occurred yesterday, March 14th. And I find it troubling, as I said, that we're seeing kids used in this manner. And the fact is, it's just a matter of truth. Oops, that's a little louder than I thought it would be. But it's truth that kids are being used. I mean, just completely used to promote an agenda. Let's move forward from that for a second. I'm going to come back to it in a moment. But the other thing I wanted to talk about in this segment was I wanted to talk about what happened in California, in Sacramento, California. And a lot of people may not be aware of this yet. But it was yesterday, and it was announced today on the 15th, but I believe it first was announced sooner than that. Actually, this morning at 12:01 a.m. out in Sacramento, being announced by the Sacramento Bee. And the article title is Undocumented Immigrant Appointed to State Post in California. So, yeah, hold the horses, stop right there and think about it. What they just said is a illegal alien. And let me define that again. Let me stop even further and start over. It's an illegal alien is an undocumented worker, is an undocumented immigrant, is a criminal, an active criminal who is evading the law and prosecution, otherwise known as a fugitive. So a criminal, and that is what, by definition, an undocumented immigrant is an undocumented worker, is an illegal alien. They are criminals. They have broken the law in the United States and they continue to evade prosecution for that crime. That is why they're illegal aliens. So this title actually reads, Illegal Alien Appointed to State Post in California. Do you notice when you put the proper legal terminology in there, it's not even a personal preference. It is the legal definition. A illegal alien appointed to state post in California. Think about that. If you said a criminal is appointed to the state post in California, which is the same statement, that is what they're saying. That's their headline. Except they have worded it very nicely. They have worded it in a way that is media friendly, that is supposed to get your emotional support behind it. An undocumented immigrant. Well, that doesn't sound so bad, except what the document they're missing is the right to be in the United States, which is a crime. They are criminals. Doesn't mean they're good or bad people. I'm not even trying to talk about that. They are, by definition, criminals. And the title should read properly, Criminal Appointed to State Post in California. And this is the first time in our nation that a criminal, and you could say, not the first time because Governor Cuomo and other politicians who are corrupt, but so maybe more accurately, illegal alien. And this is the first time an illegal alien has been ever appointed or put in a position of government. Ever. And you might wonder, with our country being well over 240 years old, why is this the first time that's ever happened? Because it's illegal. It's a crime. It is a crime. And in fact, and the woman in question, her name is Elizabeth Mateo, who's a 33-year-old attorney and immigration rights activist. Are you surprised? Of course she's an immigration rights activist. She's trying, what else would she be? She's an illegal alien living in the United States. I mean, and she hasn't been arrested yet. So I have to wonder, what else would she be? So I have to understand, and I have to wonder, how is it that the federal government doesn't walk into the state of California, into her office, and where she's going to be working on the California Student Opportunity and Access Program Project Grant Advisory Committee. Yes, that is the full name of where she's been put on. And I'm surprised they don't walk in there and arrest her and deport her as a criminal. Because she is. She doesn't, having an elected office does not absolve her or otherwise prevent the law she is breaking from allowing her to be arrested and or detained and deported. She is a criminal. And the only way that that could happen is that the state of California is willfully breaking the law and now declaring it on news and making it national that they have a criminal in their government, in their state government. Now, I understand Miss Mateo, she's very proud of herself. Oh boy, yes. And she's very happy to mention how she graduated from Santa Clara University Law School in 2016. She passed the California bar last year. And you have to stop and ask yourself, when she went to the university, when she went to take the bar exam, in the bar exam, one of the questions I imagine would be in there would be about immigration and an undocumented status being illegal. She got that? She just skipped that answer or something? She knows, by definition, she's a criminal. And she was born in Oaxaca, Mexico, I believe it is. So I have to stop, and I'm just shocked. How can we have this? How is this allowed? That someone who is willfully breaking the law. If I said to you that a crackhead was elected to office in the state of California, most of us would probably say, gee, it's not true. You're kidding, right? That's a joke. It's just not, it's made up. It's fake news. No, this isn't fake news. She's not a crackhead. She's not a crack dealer. She is a criminal. She is wanted by the law. The federal government has an active process. It's called ICE. That is the department that goes out and they deport, they take in, they arrest or detain illegal aliens and they deport them because of the crime that they're committing. And she is committing a crime. There is no two ways about it. How can we have a nation of laws if we are watching cities and states willfully break the law? How can you have a set of laws when there are some individuals who are arbitrarily picking and choosing which law that they will abide by? You cannot have a society that picks and chooses laws. That's anarchy. It breaks the social contract. I mean, going back into philosophy, it breaks the social contract that we establish laws so that we can have a society that is organized and we don't have to fear death or horrible retribution for our actions. Okay? That's why we created cities and nations, because we have laws so that we can live together under a simple set of rules. And we have in America one of the greatest sets of rules ever created that have worked better than anywhere else. That's why we have millions of people legally coming into our nation every year. And we have millions of illegal immigrants who come into our nation every year. So we have millions of people who come here every year because it is the best place on earth. I don't know of millions trying to enter any other nation every year. Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. No one's got millions trying to enter besides us. But we can't do that, and we can't function as a nation if we have cities and states that break the law. If we saw the state of California and they decided on because they wanted to, that they suddenly are going to, stoplights no longer mean red for stop. Total anarchy. No, they decided that they're going to use green because they like green. So green means stop. Everyone go, what are you, crazy? You can't do that. What if they said that in the state of California, murder was no longer a crime? And you say to me, Mike, that's just ridiculous. It's stupid. But where's the difference? If they can choose to not abide by one law because they just don't want to, what law do they have to abide by? What will they do? You can't say that, oh, it's out of bounds. They just won't do that. That just doesn't happen. It's not true. If they're breaking one law, actively, willfully, publicly breaking a law, and now brazenly breaking the law and instilling illegal aliens, and I believe they're also allowing them to be able to vote in some cities, then how can you say at any point that they're not going to say something like, well, women can't get divorced, or, if there is a divorce, women don't get any of the property, or men lose everything, or any other ridiculous law you want to make up. There's nothing that stops that. There is no rule of law. If you break the laws, there are no laws. People aren't thinking about that. They're undocumented. We should help them. Well, first of all, they broke the law. They're criminals. They need to have some kind of repercussion for breaking the law. Not a reward of being elected to an office. Not a reward of being able to vote. Those are rewards for their crime, not a punishment. It just doesn't, I don't understand how people miss that, or they don't want to accept or acknowledge that, but it is the reality. This is troubling. This is very, very troubling. But before I go any further, and I want to take that, and that connects to the first item we were talking about, and I'm going to connect them all on another thought. And when we come back, I'll talk about what's so troubling about these two items that I see happening so often. But before I do that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to listen to some music, and I'll be right back. All right, folks, I'm glad to be back with you. That's right, it's Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. And I apologize because I may have played the same music track twice. And I apologize, but, sometimes I lose track of which one I put out and which one I didn't. That being said, this is No Soundbites Allowed. And I'm your host, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, Michael Voss. So I'm happy to be here with you. And so far, we've talked in the first episode, first segment, that we were talking about the March for Our Lives, the protest about guns, which is totally stepped away from the issue of mass shootings per se, and has now become a political movement talking about the Second Amendment, because it's really lost sight of what it initially started off. Well, maybe not even initially, because, as I mentioned, the individuals behind this movement seem to be very, very political and seem to be very, very the far left, although they're hiding themselves from the public and won't let people know who they are. It would be one thing if you said, hey, this is this far left organization, they're behind all of this, and they're promoting the kids to do that. That's one thing. At least it's honest and it's direct and people know what's going on. Instead, they're hiding themselves actively to not allow people to know what's going on as they influence children on the future of our nation. So that's a bit upsetting. And then the second segment, we were talking about something equally as upsetting, is as we're seeing in the state of California, our laws are being thrown out the window. That willy-nilly, by I don't know whose decision, but in the state of California, a very progressive state, matter of fact, the leading progressive state in the nation, they decided that immigration laws don't matter. And they have put an illegal alien in government, the first time this has ever happened in our nation. So it's astounding to me. But the thing that makes it perhaps all the worse is the fact that when you talk to people about this and when you ask people about their opinion, they don't know what's going on. And I'm truly troubled about this, folks. Because in my conversations, not just today, but in many, many times, and, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on social media, and even in my conversations when I've done speeches, when I've gone out and I've been on TV, whether it's the local news television programs or when I've made speeches, I inevitably run into people who tell me that they disagree with the opinion I have. Matter of fact, there was a gentleman today on my Facebook who, in talking about the Sacramento illegal alien, he thought, hey, what's the problem? Why the hate? And you know what? I want to be very exact here so that people understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because the comment that he reposted, and I want to be very, very clear about this, so bear with me as I bring that up. I have a lot of comments out there on Facebook. So here it is. So the comment I made was, wait, stop, hold the horses. This is true. I list the Sacramento Bee article, and I then further go on to comment that an illegal alien equals undocumented immigrant equals active criminal and fugitive is part of the California state government. I could be sarcastic and ask when a drug dealer will be part of the California government, but it might be taken as a suggestion and done. This is not a violation of law. It's a destruction of the social contract. When laws can be arbitrarily tossed aside, there is no rule of law and thus no society. I'm at a loss for further comment at this moment. End quote. That is what I stated. And that was approximately about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock today, which is March 15th. The individual, and I don't want to mention his name, I don't want to embarrass him, but the individual reposted this, asking the question, why the hate? What is the problem with a dreamer fulfilling his dream? Way to go, Latinos. More power to you. Keep it up. So here's the problem that we see on Facebook and in social media. They have no idea what's going on. People are just reposting things and they're putting up memes and bullet points and just taking issues they have no idea that they're talking about. I asked this gentleman, in that same thing, I asked him a question. I mentioned that it's not hate, it's law. I thought I was clear in just 2 paragraphs. That is quote unquote what I wrote as a comment. The response is, the law says what? full stop right there. Okay. So he is literally in what we see here, and this is something that happens, it's common across the internet. He doesn't know the law. He hasn't read the article, because if he read the article, he would know that the illegal alien we're speaking about is named Lisbeth Mateo. It is a woman, not a man. Whether, even if it's self-identification, I don't care. Whatever the gender rules are, in the article, it identifies her as a woman. And this gentleman is not. He hasn't read the article. He doesn't know the laws that I'm discussing. And he's telling me that I'm full of hate, that this is a hateful thing. This is the modern society that we're looking at. This is what our kids are looking at. That the answer is, well, if you have an opposing view to an idea, you're hateful. I'm not hateful. It's the law. A law that he doesn't even know what the law is. On top of which he doesn't know the issue. He doesn't even know the subject I'm talking about. How can you protest something you don't know? Which brings me back to the kids with the walkout. How can they protest something they don't know? Most kids don't know. Most adults don't know about the law. I was having a conversation with a rather informed individual about the walkout and talking about the political groups that are behind the students that have been pushing them across the nation, that had the money and organization to set up a nationwide protest. And his answer to me, as it went on, is that he questioned one of the articles I had written, saying, hey, you're telling me about, gun violence is so high. Of course these kids are going to be upset. It's increasing. Gun violence is increasing. And I had to turn around and tell him, that's not true. In fact, Professor James Allen Fox has just done a study out of Northeastern University and shows that, in fact, gun violence in schools, mass shootings, are down since the 1990s, that we're actually trending lower. And he said, well, no, that's not true. So I had to give him an article. And I had to mention to him, if you didn't know this, how could a 15 to 19-year-old know this? If you didn't know that the actual number of mass shootings at schools is down over the last 20 years, how is a 15 to 19-year-old supposed to know that? And this is a gentleman who works in the media. There's your problem. We have people who are moving and making statements, and they're impassionate. They're very, very passionate. They have a lot of emotion invested in this, but they don't know what they're talking about. Folks, know what you're talking about. I understand having the passion. I have a lot of passion for what I speak about. I also spend hours, tens of hours. I've written 400 hours of material in writing and speeches and videos, article, podcasts. 400 hours over the last decade talking about the Second Amendment. I have somewhere around 50 hours that I have dedicated talking about the First Amendment. I've talked about for tens of hours about just about every subject that has been on the front lines of newspapers across the nation and internationally, pretty much for any subject you can name. I've done my homework. I know. When I wrote my recent article in my website, mvass.com, mvass.com, the Voss Political, I wrote an article on HR 5087. Guess what? That article took me 12 hours because I was looking up every single relevant law and reading through every single. So I was looking up 18 USC 922, 18 USC 933, 18 USC 924, the National Firearms Act of 1934, the 1968 amendment to that act. I was reading all of the relevant laws and where they also connect, and looking at the IRS regulations on seizure of property. I'm reading through all of the regulations. It takes hours so that I could write one article to be able to say, yes, in fact, this is the truth. And here are the sources. This is the truth. When I do my posts here, I spend hours beforehand making sure that I have all of the pertinent facts. And I'm amazed that so few people on the other side, people who are saying, oh, but that's wrong. I feel like it's wrong. They feel like this is the answer. And the problem is, feelings aren't laws. Feelings aren't justice. The feeling that you get because someone told you you should be upset is not an answer. I saw someone who posted something. The kids across the nation, they went out and they protested. When we saw police officers shot across the nation, the kids didn't go out and protest. When we saw Columbine, kids didn't go out and protest. Sandy Hook, kids didn't go out and protest. I mean, there's a lot of mass shootings are not new. School shootings are not new. We didn't see protests before. We didn't see protests until someone said, go out on the media and you should be upset. And then we saw it. I'm seeing this with the reaction on the immigration. Individuals who are upset because someone said they should be upset. They're telling me, well, this is hateful because someone told them that it should be hateful. Now, this is the most scary thing about this. This is what our youth are being told. That they should be upset and they should be angry and they should protest and they should fight against laws that exist without knowing what those laws are. That they're being told that they should give up on their rights without knowing what those rights are. That is a very, very bad trend for America. That is very bad for our kids. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with anything I believe. But to have a reason besides I don't feel like it's a good thing, and to tell me that, well, someone else told me that I should be upset, that is terrifying. A friend of mine had a post, or reposted an article from a mother talking to her kid. Her kid on Wednesday said, Mom, I want to go out in the protest and not go to school today. Okay. The mom asked their kid, and I don't know the age of the kid, but they asked the kid, who seems to be a younger kid. They asked him, well, son, let me ask you, why are you going to protest? Well, it's a bad, guns are a bad thing. Really? Okay. Why are they a bad thing? Kid didn't know. What laws are you looking to change? Kid didn't know. What do you want to change the laws to? Kid didn't know. Mom said, well, why are you going? Well, people said that it's a bad thing. And the mom said, no, you can't go protest. Not because I don't think you should protest, but because you don't know why you're protesting. You don't know what you're trying to change. You don't know what's going on. Educate yourself, and then you can go and do whatever you want. I say the same thing. Educate yourself. But when we are looking at a society that is dominated by the images and memes that are out there, the 30-second sound bites that are out there, the bullet points, and I'm talking about Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Conservatives, I don't care, all of them. When they're telling you by a meme and a 30-second sound bite and a bullet point that this is the whole story, they're full of it. And that should terrify you. And no one should be able to make a decision based on, I saw a meme, I heard them say, find out. That's what I try and do. And that's what I'm trying to do here with you. And hopefully people appreciate it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But at least you know more about what's going on. Well, and with that said, I'm going to end this episode. I thank you for being with us here today. Again, it's a little bit more of a rant, but sometimes that happens. But we'll look forward to speaking with you all again very, very soon.